Hello, the following is a video over geometry. This is Unit 1, and this is Section 6. We're going to be talking about complementary and supplementary angles. So what we want to achieve today, our objectives, we want to identify complementary angles and supplementary angles from given diagrams. We want to solve problems involving measures of complementary and supplementary angles. We want to complete the steps to prove statements using complementary angles and supplementary angles. So let's quickly talk about the linear pair postulate. Okay, and a lot of you guys have kind of come up with this, but we figured out in the last unit that a linear pair, those are two angles who form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. Okay, a linear pair was a pair of adjacent angles, so here's one angle, ACD, and another angle, DCB, and they're adjacent, they're next to each other, they share a common ray here, but they're opposite, their non-common sides form a line, okay? So when you have a linear pair, you know that they are supplementary. And supplementary means that two angles whose measures have a sum of 180 degrees. So given an example like this, I'm going to say that angle ACD plus angle DCB, if I add those two angles together, that's going to give me a total of 180 degrees. Okay, so, you know, and also over here, supplementary angles, they add up to 180 degrees, okay? A lot of people say that they are 180 degrees, but that's incorrect. You need to make sure that you say that they add up to 180 degrees, okay? The next one that we have is called complementary angles. You guys are all looking great today, okay? I want to be complimentary with you. All right, but a complementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. So again, complementary angles means that they add up to 90 degrees, okay? So what we would say here, okay, given that RST is a right angle, and we know it's a right angle because of that little symbol there, we know that if we take the small angle, which is RSU, okay, RSU, angle RSU plus angle UST, then because that's a right angle right here, okay, I know that they add up to 90 degrees, okay? And same thing over here, you know, they don't have to be next to each other. Okay, they can be away from each other, but if their sums add up to 90 degrees, okay, if their angles add up to 90, then they're complementary. All right, so here you see that angle JHG is 40 degrees, angle NML is 50 degrees. So if I took angle JHG, add it to angle NML, then that would give me a total of 90 degrees, okay, because JHG is 40 degrees plus NML, which is 50 degrees, and if I add those together, I get 90 degrees, okay? Okay, on this next page, and this problem, it's asking us to find the following measures, okay? It wants us to find the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 4, okay? So here's what I've got, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Here's what I know. I know that angle 2 right now is 90 degrees, okay? So I'm going to write in here, and I'm just going to zoom in on this. I know that angle 2 is 90 degrees, okay? Okay, now I also know that, I have a straight line here and a straight line here. So what I know is that this angle is 90, okay? That means that this whole thing is 180 degrees, okay? If this is 90, I know that this part here is 90. So I'm going to write an equation to solve for angle 1. I'm going to say angle 1 plus 70 degrees is equal to 90, okay? Because this forms a straight line. And this is 90, that means the other piece has to be 90 because they both have to add up to 180. So if I subtract 70 degrees from both sides, minus 70 degrees, then we get that angle 1 is equal to 20 degrees. So I know that this angle right here is 20 degrees. Now the other thing that I know, okay, is that right here, this is a straight line, okay? And I have these two angles here that are next to each other, whose opposite, whose non-common sides form a straight line. So these two angles are supplementary, okay? They form a linear pair. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up an equation for that. I'm going to say angle 4 plus 70 degrees is equal to 180 degrees, okay? And I'm going to subtract 70 from both sides, and I get that angle 4 is equal to 110 degrees, all right? And that's it, okay? The other thing I could say here is that, this is 110 degrees, all right? I also know that these two angles here are vertical angles. They are across from each other. So I know that angle 3, these two angles are congruent. I know that angle 3 is 70 degrees. So I could have set up an equation here. The key is, folks, is that we have to set up equations, okay? It's kind of easy to do this. You might be able to just do this in your head, and that's good. But the reality is that we're not always going to have nice, even numbers. So angle 1 is 20 degrees, and angle 4 is 110 degrees. All right, so let's continue on. On this one, it says find the following measures, okay? And we want to find the measure of angle EAD, this measure here, and then CAB, which is here. All right, so here's what I know, okay? I know that, and I think that's all I have to find. That's all. Okay, that's good. All right, so let's just find all the angle measures, all right? Now I know that this angle right here, okay, DAF, this is a 90-degree angle. It has that symbol there, so I'm just going to go in here, and I'm going to write that's 90 degrees. Okay, therefore, all right, because I have a straight line here, and because this angle here is 90 degrees, I know that angle CAD is also 90 degrees. Okay, I'm going to come in here and write that. So therefore, okay, and I'll call angle EAD, I'll just call that angle X, okay? And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to set up an equation because these two angles are complementary. They add up to 90 degrees. So I'm going to do X plus 61 degrees is equal to 90 degrees. Okay, then I'm going to subtract 61 degrees from both sides. And I get X is equal to, what is that, 29 degrees? Okay, so I know that angle EAD is 29 degrees. Okay? All right, now the other thing I need to figure out, what was it? Angle CAB, so I need to figure out this angle here. All right, I'm going to call that angle Y. All right, and so here's what I know. Okay, I know that this angle and this angle form a linear pair. Their non-common sides form a straight line. So if they form a linear pair, then that means that both of these angles are supplementary, meaning they add up to 180. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an equation, and I'm going to say that Y plus 61 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. So I'm going to subtract 61 degrees from both sides, minus 61 degrees, and so I get that y is equal to 119 degrees. Okay, so this is 119 degrees. So here's what I'm going to fill this in over here. Now it says find the measure of angle EAD. I figured that out here. That was 29 degrees. Okay, and then the measure of angle CAB was 119 degrees. Okay? All right. Now here's what it says. Okay, here's another question. Okay, it says angle QRT and LMN are complements. Okay, that means that they say nice things to each other. Okay, it also means that they add up to 90 degrees. Okay, so here's what I can say. All right, and then it wants us to find the actual measure of angle QRT. But the problem is that the angle measure is an expression. Okay, it's an algebraic expression, and I know that once I find x, I can figure out what that angle measure is. So here's what I'm going to do first. Okay, I'm going to set these up. I know if they're complements, I know that that means that angle that QRT plus angle LMN, okay, if I add those two angles together, that's going to give me 90 degrees. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and substitute those values that I have for them. So it's 5x and 9x plus 20. So if I do 5x plus 9x plus 20 is equal to 90 degrees, okay? Now I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to combine like terms. So 5x plus 9x gives me 14x plus 20 is equal to 90 degrees. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides, and so that gives me 14x is equal to 70. I'm going to divide by 14 on both sides. And that's going to give me an x value of 5. Okay, now all I've done is solve for x. I haven't figured out what the angle is, and that's what the question's asking me to do. Okay, it's wanting me to find the measure of angle QRT. So I'm going to say this. Okay, the measure of angle QRT. Okay, so the measure of angle QRT was 5x. Okay, now remember we found out that x was equal to 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 5, I'm going to plug it in for x, and see what we get for that angle measure. So that's just going to give me 5 times 5, which is a total of 25 degrees. So angle QRT has a measure of 25 degrees, okay, and that's us answering that question. Okay, let's take a look over here on this last one for the page. Okay, it says, what is the value of y? Okay, well, here's what I know. Okay, so it wants us to find the value of y, and then it wants us to find the measure of JKM and MKL. All right, so what I know, I need to set up an equation here. But what I know is that these are two adjacent angles whose non-common sides form a straight line. We call this a linear pair. So two angles that are next to each other that form a line like this are a linear pair. And what we know is that these two angles add up to 180 degrees. So let's do this, okay? I know that angle JKM plus angle MKL is equal to 180 degrees, okay? Now, JKM, that has an expression of 10y plus 6. Okay, MKL is 8y minus 6, and that's equal to 180 degrees. Okay, now I have set up an equation based off of this picture, and I'm going to solve for y. Guys, this is what I need you to be able to do. Okay, we've got to set up equations. Okay, we've got to get good at it. So here's what I've got. I'm going to combine like terms. I've got positive 6 and negative 6. If I take positive 6 and add negative 6 to it, it becomes 0, so I can just cross those out. Okay, and then I have 10y and 8y. All right, and if I add those together, that's going to give me 18y. And that's equal to 180 degrees. If I divide by 18 on both sides, then I get that y is equal to 10. All right, so I found out what that is. Okay, found y. Y is equal to 10. Okay, now I'm going to use that value of 10, okay, to figure out what those other angle measures are. So I know that JKM, and I'm going to do this over here, angle JKM was 10y plus 6. Okay? So 10y plus 6. Now, y was equal to 10. All right? So since y is equal to 10, I'm going to plug that in for y here. So I'm going to get the value of 10 times 10 plus 6. 10 times 10 is 100 plus 6, means that this angle measure, angle JKM, has a measure of 106 degrees, okay? Now, here's the thing. I don't have to necessarily plug 10 back into this one, okay? I don't have to plug it back in. I could just know that they're supplementary, all right, and figure that out by setting up an equation. I could say 106 plus angle MKL, if I add those together, I'm going to get 180. Okay, if I subtract 106 from both sides, minus 106, then I get that angle MKL is equal to, what is that, 74 degrees? Okay, and that's it. Okay, now I can do it that way. That's one way of doing it. I'm just going to put my answers in. So I've got 106 degrees, and then this is 74 degrees. All right, so now what I could also do is plug 10 in here, and I should get a value of 74. So let's go ahead and just do that real quick. So angle MKL, that was 8y minus 6. All right, and so if I plug in 10 into that, I get 8 times 10 minus 6. All right, and that's going to give me a value of 80 minus 6, which gives me 74 degrees. Okay, so it doesn't matter, you know, which way you do it, but it matters that you get it right, okay? And that's the thing, guys. You know, I can't just look at this and figure this out. This does require some work. So, you know, I do ask that you guys, you know, put some work into this. But, you know, think about ways that you could figure out the answer without having to do a ton of algebra, okay? If you can get the right answer, okay, by doing a minimal amount of algebra, then let's do that. Okay, but it does require some, okay? I should see some work. All right, next page.